some of your best or worst memories of dealing with the guitar? Any great stories about famous guitarists that you've worked with or things like that?
The best stories are happening every time there is a successful concert. I mean, every good concert is a wonderful story to talk about there, because there's so much happening on it. The worst stories were when I was starting to play in public, and when I first encountered this, seriously encountered the problem of public appearances and being nervous in front of the audience. And when I was younger, maybe, I cannot remember when was that, maybe right at the end of the high music school, I kind of had these moments when I would go on stage and completely shake, and to the level that I would stop playing, that I would not be able to continue out of nervousness, and so those are really those were bad moments that I've had. However, those moments were a great test for me to work internally with myself and trying to find a deeper meaning of music, and because I encountered that my personal ego, that's actually what caused this high level of nervousness. Fighting that through the music expressivity, I kind of managed to get to this point where now it becomes a way more than just playing in front of people. Every single concert for me presents opportunity to really dig in deep into my emotional states and kind of get to the little higher level of mental level, and bringing a little bit higher that focus level, and getting to the certain state that's really wonderful. I mean, the feelings that I would get when I manage to do that are wonderful feelings. I mean, I feel like the concert goes for only 5 minutes and the concert is an hour and a half or something like that. It really transcends into different mindset. And I don't think that actually would happen if it hadn't been for these very difficult moments in the beginning. So I had to go through a lot of internal personal work to make that happen, and then as a result now it's really a pure enjoyment being on stage. I don't know if that makes sense much, but that's how it went for me.
Could you talk a little bit more about that? Like, if you had a student that was dealing with a lot of nervousness issues, what kind of advice would you give him or her?
Well, now of course I made a kind of a method for that, so having to go through that by myself, I learned a lot about that process. Well, if that would happen, first of all, I don't talk about that unless it happens. That's one of my golden rules. So you don't want to talk about nervousness on the stage, and you don't want to bring these subjects unless student does not react well on the stage. Because by talking about that, and if there is no problem with the student, you can make those problems. You can have them self-conscious, and they would induce the problem. So you don't talk about that unless there is a serious problem. And the way you see that is just by having class recitals for my students. And if I see that everything goes well, then I don't talk about it. But if I see that someone is really affected by being nervous on the stage, at that point I would start methodically addressing that issue. And the first thing is how they prepare the music. I mean, I think a lot nervousness can be taken down to the acceptable level by just having to memorize the pieces without the guitar. I mean, if you are able to learn your piece without having the instrument, I mean, normally you play your instrument by heart, but then I tell them 50% of the practice time in those cases should go to memorization of the piece without an instrument. That means that they would hold the music in front of them, and then visualize for each single note that they see on the paper, they would visualize their left and right hand, how they do it. And they should also hear that in their head. So it looks like their whole body is playing, their brain should have an impression of actually playing the work, and they're not doing that. What that does, it creates a huge amount of security that even if you're nervous, even if your fingers are not working properly, you're not going to stop. You're not going to stop in the middle of the piece not knowing how to continue. Because this memory, this non-playing memory, I mean non-muscle memory, is so powerful that actually can help you stabilize on the stage and actually go through this nervousness on a lower scale. So that's the first and probably most important thing. Then after that, I would ask them to, when they practice the music in their room, that they just don't go through the piece thinking about, okay, this phrase here, this phrase there, crescendo here, or think about other things while they play. No, I ask them to practice as if they're on the stage, meaning they have to internalize the music and they have to express music the same way they would do on the stage. So let's say they play a romantic piece. When they start learning that piece, I would ask them actually to associate certain emotions with that piece, and even with the portions of that piece, maybe even with a certain phrase. I say, you see, this is a nice phrase, so what does this associate you to? I mean, is this something that you would like to associate with a person, with your girlfriend, with a boyfriend, with certain nature things? So we would associate certain things with those sections of the piece, and then I ask them, whenever you play the piece, please think about those emotions, think about these people, and connect always that picture in your head when you're playing the piece in your room. What that does on the stage, the same thing. You go on stage, you start playing, suddenly you're programmed to actually put in these images and these emotions into your playing, because that's how you practiced, and simply there is not any more room for anything else, such as the audience presence or butterflies in the stomach. I mean, when you practice with a strong amount of focus on your emotions, that preoccupies your body and mind so much that it doesn't let any other outside things to affect you. So I think that's really, really powerful for students to fight this nervousness and to go through that. That helps. So for example, those are some things that I would suggest. Third thing, very important, would be often playing. What that means is that I would ask them, when they prepare, when they are close to being ready for the concert, that they would actually play their music at least once or twice a week in front of someone. It doesn't have to be audience, it can be their roommate, or it can be their parents, or whoever. Just someone to listen to that. That creates a little bit a stage kind of presence feeling, and they get used more to what it feels like. Because remember, always the problem is that we practice in room, we are so cozy, nice, comfortable, we do in those kind of conditions, and then when you go on stage, it's completely different. Your fingers are cold, there is audience there, I mean the whole thing around you is different from what you've practiced. So you want to be as much as possible into that new environment and get used to it, so you know what's coming up, and that again helps you to prepare. So once when you know that your fingers are going to be colder, once when you know that there will be a little bit uneasy feelings on the stage, you get used to it, you get accustomed and you accept it, and then you deal with it. If you don't have anyone to listen to you, at least record yourself. I mean, but record it, put the recording 5 feet away, so you have to stand up, turn the recorder on, go back, sit and start playing without any introduction like tuning or anything. No, play from the first note. And that again will create a little bit of nervousness, and that's enough for you for a student to actually get a better feeling of what's coming up. So overall, it's kind of preparing for what's coming up and trying to make that as familiar feeling as possible, and then that usually works pretty well.